Anyway, yeah, let's get to Depeche Mode. You know, let me think. Where did I start with Depeche Mode? The beginnings of Depeche Mode started through a friend of mine in 1987. A friend of mine had an older cousin who loved electronic music and new wave music, and he was a huge Depeche Mode fan. In fact, he still is. When Andy Fletcher died a few weeks ago, I actually texted him. We were talking about it, and um, he had a couple of blank tapes. I don't even do they make blank tapes anymore? People are buying cassettes again, which is crazy to me. I never got into buying cassettes. I never really got into buying CDs either. I've always picked up records, but he had a couple of blank tapes and they were filled with Depeche Mode remixes. Now this is up till the Black Celebration phase. Music for the Masses had not come out. And so that's essentially when I became a fan. And on these blank tapes were like the remix, like the metal mix of Something to Do, which was the B side to the Shake the Disease single, the remixes to Shake the Disease. I never loved Shake the Disease, but the remixes are killer. They totally turn the original version on its head. Um, oh God, there were remixes of Black Celebration, of Fly in the Windscreen. It's Called a Heart, and the B sides to those like Flexible, Stripped, Question of Time. That's all from the Black Celebration album. You go backwards a little bit, and so that was when I became a fan. I guess I was 14 years old or so, 1987. So uh, I went backwards from there. I checked out Speak and Spell, didn't quite get that at the time. I checked out Broken Frame, which sounded like a completely alien record. It still sounds that way, and to this day, Broken Frame is one of my favorite Depeche Mode albums. In my last Mode video I just made, I linked to my top 10 albums of Depeche Mode that I wrote for Discogs. Check it out if you want. Maybe you'll agree, probably disagree, but I had Broken Frame pretty high up there, and I still feel that way. And then Construction Time Again, and then Some Great Reward. And then they had a compilation called Catching Up with Depeche Mode, which is where Shake the Disease got put on. It never really got put on a studio album. Shake the Disease was more a single to promote the Catching Up with Depeche Mode album, compilation album. But at any rate, that's when I became aware of them. And so I had all those albums to dig into. And you look at Speak and Spell, and I'm not gonna tell you all the base level facts about Depeche Mode. We all know. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you Vince Clarke was part of Depeche Mode. Then he went to Yaz, and then he went to Erasure. I'm gonna leave that up to you. But like Speak and Spell, their first album has a certain sound. Vince Clarke was the songwriter, so it sounds a little different. It's still good though. Speak and Spell was a fascinating album back then. And I mean, it was an overtly pop album, but it was also dark enough to kind of catch your ear. There's something a little more intricate and refined happening than what you were hearing on typical new wave albums at the time, like Human League, for example, or any synth pop, even Simple Minds. The popular synth pop at that time was pretty simple. This top 40 drivel, really. And Depeche Mode was doing something a little more sophisticated. It took a more sensitive listener to really kind of dive in and appreciate what they were doing. Speak and Spell has some really great songs on, like Photographic, Dreaming of Me, Just Can't Get Enough. It definitely has some really horrible songs on there, like What's My Name or What's Your Name. I don't know. Probably the worst Depeche Mode song of all time. Um, uh, uh, Puppets, another great song from that album. So there was something, Tora Tora Tora. There was something a little deeper going on with Speak and Spell. And then Vince Clarke scrammed, and then Broken Frame came out. And Broken Frame, like I mentioned before, is one of my favorite albums. It's just a weird, spooky little synth album. Um, it was the first album where Martin Gore started writing the songs. And to this day, I think it's one of their most intriguing albums. because it's not like any other album they've ever done, even to this day. It's musically, it's a little more subdued. I think Martin Gore is trying to figure out who he was as a songwriter, but also the lyrics are a little more political. Like they had a couple of years there where they wrote politicized lyrics, and I think from ever since Black Celebration on, that's Depeche Mode's Achilles heel are the lyrics. Martin Gore has just kind of given up on his lyrics. So it's man, lyrically, Depeche Mode can be like you know, it can just it can make you, it give you goosebumps how horrible their lyrics can be. But their music is so good that you look past it. But every once in a while, Martin Gore writes some really touching lyrics that grab you and pull you back in. But lyrically, A Broken Frame is just kind of weird. It's their weirdest album by a long shot, and I think that's why I appreciated it, or still appreciated it. Appreciated it. It's just so different than anything else in their catalog. And then Construction Time Again came after that in 1983. And that's a good album, not one of their best albums. I feel like it's it's got three or four really good songs, and then it's got a couple of okay songs, and then a couple of songs that are like, it's not as good as Broken Frame. I don't think even as good as Speak and Spell in some way, but it does have really classic cuts on it, like Love Itself, More Than a Party, 2 Minute Warning, Shame is a good song, and then the last song on the album, great song, could have been a single, one of those types of songs that's, that just reminded me of a song on A Broken Frame that's one of my favorites, The Sun and the Rainfall, the last song on that album, and then is the last song on Construction Time Again. Sun and the Rainfall is a great song, should have been a single. I think it's arguably the best song on that Broken Frame album and one of their best songs they ever did, period. But back to Construction Time Again. Oh, Construction Time had Pipeline on it too, which was a great song. So it's a good album, not a perfect album. It also shows Alan Wilder writing a few of the songs, which didn't really happen much. As we know, Gore is the main songwriter for Depeche Mode, and always has been. But Alan Wilder was starting to push his way in there, and he was kind of the George Harrison of the band, trying to always fight his songs onto the albums. But Alan Wilder's songs were good. He wrote the B-side to Love in Itself, Fools, which is a great song. Could have been on the album, should have been on the album, in my opinion. And it has two versions too. The 7-inch for Love in Itself has the short version, and the 12-inch has the longer version, and they're both different. Really, really cool song. Construction Time Again is a good album. And then Some Great Reward came out the year after that, 1984. Definitely a pretty spotty album. One of their least interesting albums, in my opinion, but has some really great songs. Something to Do, Lie to Me, and If You Want. And If You Want is another Alan Wilder song, one of their best songs, I think. Great song. Other than that, Some Great Reward never struck me as a very good album. It's got People Are People on it, their most overplayed, bland song they ever did, in my opinion. It's also got Master and Servant on it, another very overhyped, bland song. Blasphemous Rumors is on that. Never was a fan of that song either. Those were the singles from that album right there. The B-sides to those albums were pretty good. On Master and Servant, you had Set Me Free, Remotivate Me, great B-side. The B-side to People Are People, another Alan Wilder song. Is it In My Memory? In My Memory? In Your Memory? Keep it in your memory, I think. Anyway, great song. And it has a 7-inch version and a 12-inch version. Both are great. Alan Wilder was definitely proving that he had the goods. The rest of the album, though, I don't know. Some Great Reward has always been very far from my favorite album from them. But great singles. You have to get the singles too. And I forgot to mention too, they had plenty of singles that only got released as singles, like Get the Balance Right. Amazing song. That came after Construction Time Again and before Some Great Reward. Get the balance right. Beautiful song. Oh, this reminds me too. One of the best songs they ever did was a B-side to the Meaning of Love single, Oberkorn. Oberkorn. Check that song out. Get the long version on the 12-inch. Beautiful song. One of the best ambient songs I've ever heard. Really cool stuff. And it's a B-side, you know? I mean, this is why you need to investigate Depeche Mode as deeply as possible. So, in Some Great Reward, I think the singles are better. Set Me Free, Remotivate Me, great mixes. Master and Servant, I don't know. I don't like that song. I didn't think the remixes were very, very good. The remixes, the People are pretty cool. I will recommend getting that single. Not a great song, but the remixes are good. So, after that, they put out Catching Up with Depeche Mode, which is their first compilation album of like a greatest hits. Shake the Disease was on there. It's Called a Heart were on there. Two singles that were released for that album. Then Black Celebration came in 1986. And it's funny, like with Depeche Mode, you can tell what kind of music people like if you ask them what their favorite Depeche Mode album is. And I think all goths out there will agree with me that Black Celebration is their favorite Depeche Mode album. Every goth I've ever talked to, you ask them what their favorite Depeche Mode album is, and without hesitation, they say Black Celebration. And I think there's many reasons for that. It's a great album too. Number one, black is in the title. The cover is black. And it's a pretty dark album. Black Celebration is a very subdued, muddy, and when I say muddy, I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean muddy like the production. Um, like a Bauhaus song or, a legendary Pink Dot song or any goth band you can name song. It's in that flavor, and it's a good album. But again, it's a strange album. It's strange like a broken frame. There's like three or four really great cuts, potential singles or singles. And then the rest of the album's like these weird, like Here Is the House, um, Dressed in Black. The end of Black Celebration is very weird. It's not bad. It's great, but it's almost like an album that you listen to while you entered a haunted house or something. It's just strange production, strange lyrics, but it works. And goths love it. I defy you to talk to a goth who doesn't love Black Celebration. They all love Black Celebration. And the singles from Black Celebration were phenomenal. Stripped, great single, awesome remixes. Breathing in Fumes, Black Day, which is a weird harmonium version of Black Celebration. The quiet mix of Fly on the Windscreen, which is super strange. Stripped is one of their best singles, without a doubt. Black Celebration, no, Black Celebration wasn't a single. It should have been. Fly on the Windscreen was a single from that album. Fly on the Windscreen, though, came out before that album. What was the other single from Black Celebration? It was, Question of Time and Question of Lust. Question of Time was like an up-tempo dance track, and then Question of Lust was like a ballad, kind of like Somebody from the album before that. That was also a single. It's just like a ballad that Martin Gore was singing on. Great album. Black Celebration. It was definitely their goth moment. Definitely their trench coat moment. With Some Great Reward, they had this cloud over them. They had a moment there in the mid '80s with the Some Great Reward album where it was master and servant. There's a video out there where they were dressed up in leather and chains and bondage, and master and servant's all about S&M and bondage and shit like that. And so they had this image that the public put upon them, like, oh, Depeche Mode is just that silly little band that wears makeup and dresses in leather, and it was just a very small moment, but people hung on to that image of them for several years. Really, they would hang on to that image of them up until Violator, I think. And so they missed some of their greatest output because they were busily judging the band. But yeah, that bondage thing only lasted for a very brief glimpse of time for them. And people missed albums like Black Celebration and the next one, Music for the Masses, which was insane. Now, that was the first album that came out while I was an active fan of theirs. And man, those of you who were being a fan of Depeche Mode at that time, you'll understand this. It's hard to quantify the hysteria that existed around this band then. People loved Depeche Mode. And yeah, I'm trying to think of a way to describe it. It's a weird, the Depeche Mode's a weird phenomenon because they are talented enough to write really catchy songs and pop hooks and have this mass audience, but they hadn't reached that level yet. They were like a secret. Those of us who were paying attention knew that Depeche Mode was super special. They had this potential to bust through, but they hadn't done it. It hadn't happened yet. And people didn't assume that that was ever going to happen. When Music for the Masses came out, that's when everyone, the fans knew, like, oh shit, these guys are going to be huge. We always knew it, but if they don't go nuclear with mass Music for the Masses, then they won't go nuclear at all. And they did. Music for the Masses just blew them into the sky. Um, but they still like this is the great trick that they're able to pull off is that they're able to have this big mass audience, but they're able to be, technical enough with their productions and weird enough and inventive enough and creative enough to keep the dorks like me happy. And I think that's the magic pill that they're able to get everyone to swallow is that Depeche Mode is able to balance this act of being really popular and being really really credible at the same time. Music for the Masses is a perfect example of this. It's an album that's very strange, very personal, extremely unique, but has mass crossover appeal. There aren't many bands in history that can pull this off. There are a couple. Very few do it successfully. And Depeche Mode's one of those bands that do it. Music for the Masses was the band that pushed them over the top. But that didn't mean that us fans still couldn't love it. But they definitely started generating a new audience, especially in California. They were huge in parts of Europe, in Germany and UK. But in America, they were still kind of spreading slowly. But they were a big thing in LA, basically through K Rock, the radio station down there. Um, K Rock basically dedicated itself to interesting electronic or new wave or punk or just new and interesting music, and they hammered Depeche Mode a lot. And music for they had this big promotion for the 101 tour, which is what they called the music. Basically, that's the album they were touring was the Music for the Masses album. They call it the 101 tour, and they ended up playing the Rose Bowl. They made a movie about it, and I highly recommend you watch it. But yeah, it was they made music for the masses. I remember going to the theater to see it, and it was exciting, man. The only other concert video out there really at the time that I'd ever seen was Stop Making Sense by Talking Heads, which is amazing in itself, but that's a different conversation. But 101 was interesting because it focused on the fans. And it's important to point out that that kind of thing didn't exist then. It was reality television. I someone can argue this point, but 101 is one of the very first times in history where this idea of reality television was put on screen. It's the first time I ever saw it, and all the things that 101 did back in 1998 or 1988, 88, not 98, 88, people are still doing now. And I will remind people that didn't exist back then. So D.A. Pennebaker directed that movie. He did the Bob Dylan documentary back in the 60s. Oh, what was the name of the? I want to say Don't Look Back, but that was a Scorsese. No Way Home. I don't know. He did the Dylan documentary, all right, which is great, by the way. Um, and it doesn't matter if you're a Bob Dylan fan. You should watch that movie. And I am a Bob Dylan fan, and so I love it. But you don't have to be to enjoy that movie. But yeah, 101 was like, in some aspects, ground zero for reality television. Go watch it. Go watch it, and remember that that movie came out in 1988. So they put out an album for that live album, and we all thought there's no way Depeche Mode's going to be able to top this. There is no way. They've had the meteoric rise that they've always wanted, and now they're at the precipice of their fame. They're never going to get more popular. This is it. This is the top of the mountain for them. Well, we all know what came after that. Violator. That's when us fans were like, okay, this band can do anything. After, I mean, that was the most exciting time to be a Depeche Mode fan for me personally. When Violator came out, it was like, holy shit. Like, the rave scene was happening. 1990 was an absurd year for music. Just go look up the year. There was no shortage of brilliant albums in 1990. I mean, my mind is being flooded with records that came out in 1990. Depeche Mode, Violator, Happy Mondays, Pills and Thrills and Bellyaches. All right, shit. I mean, the list goes on. The KLF, Chill Out. Albums that are massive in my world that I listen to on a regular basis. It was a huge year for music. So Depeche Mode could put out Violator, and the rave scene was busily exploding. And so, Depeche Mode started picking people out to remix singles from that album. Like with Enjoy the Silence, they brought in Francois Kevorkian to remix that. And that was the second single. The first single was Personal Jesus. They had Francois Kevorkian remix that. Daniel Miller remixed the B-side, Dangerous. Enjoy the Silence came out. Kevorkian did those mixes, and then they had that big, long 15.5-minute quad mix that had Tim Simonon on it and Adrian Sherwood. They pulled in Adrian Sherwood to do some stuff on that one. Enjoy the Silence is what it is. We all know that song, and it's a great single. The next single was Policy of Truth, and that's when they brought in Kevorkian again. They also brought in the KLF to remix that. Great remix they did. Then the last single was World in My Eyes, which is the best single from that album, if you ask me. They brought in Kevorkian again, which was a great move. Kevorkian just delivered some of the greatest remixes he's ever done. If you don't know Francois Kevorkian either, check him out. Kevorkian is a fucking legend. All right. If you don't know the name Francois Kevorkian, you need to know it. Go look him up. He is a remixing beast. He's been around since the 70s, and he's still out there making top shelf shit. Francois Kevorkian, all right? Check him out. In World of My Eyes, they started really getting into the rave thing. They brought in the Orb to remix the B-side, Happiest Girl. They brought in John Marsh of The Beloved to do World in My Eyes. Who am I missing? Who remixed that? Kevorkian, The Orb, John Marsh. Is there somebody else? I think that might be it. But, oh my God, picture that, all right? Violator comes out, and then you've got Personal Jesus, all those mixes, and then Dangerous, the B-side. Then you've got Enjoy the Silence, and then the B-sides to that. What were they? Sibling and Mephisto. Then you've got Policy of Truth, the B-side to that. Collide, 3 versions of that. And then World of My Eyes comes out. You get 2 B-sides of that. Sea of Sin and Happiest Girl. Okay? Have you heard those 2 songs? They could have been on the album. Easily could have been on the album. In 1990, Depeche Mode was on an absurd roll. And Flood. I need to point out Flood produced that album. And Flood's amazing. So, but all those guys were on this creative high that it's you can't compare it to anything else. A really beautiful time to be a Depeche Mode fan, and that's the first time I saw them live. I saw them here in Portland in, I want to say July of 1990. July of 1990. And then a couple of days later, 3 or 4 days later, a friend of mine who loved Depeche Mode was out of town, and then he wanted to see them. So we drove down to Mountain View, California, and saw them a couple of days later. So I saw Depeche Mode twice within a few days on the Violator tour. And Nitzer Ebb was opening. So, man, it's fun to think about. It's fucking insane. It's been 32 years now, but there you go. It's been 32 years, but that was a blast. Just a really magical time to be a Depeche Mode fan and just be a fan of music. And here's a story. The very first video I did for this channel was Andy Weatherall. The first time I became aware of Andy Weatherall, and I might talk about this in that video, I don't remember, was at that Depeche Mode show in Mountain View, California. Before Depeche Mode came on, they were playing like a mixtape as bands do. And this song came on. And I was like, holy shit, what is this? I mean, it was one of the coolest things I'd ever heard. And this chick behind me, she was like, oh, this is the Andy Weatherall mix of Hallelujah from the Happy Mondays. That was the first time I ever heard the name Andy Weatherall. And my life definitely changed after that. Those of you who have never heard the Weatherall mix of Hallelujah by Happy Mondays, go do yourself a favor and listen to this song. It is an amazing, fucking awesome song. So yeah, a lot happened that summer with Depeche Mode. I saw a great show, and I learned of arguably my all-time favorite producer. So after that, Songs of Faith and Devotion came out, and that's kind of when, that's when Depeche Mode started taking a dive. I think they tried to go all grunge, or Dave tried to go all grunge at least, and the rest of the band weren't really on board with that, but they did their best to try to compromise. They came up with a pretty decent album. Songs of Faith and Devotion has got 3 or 4 really great cuts. I think Walking in My Shoes is a great song. I think In Your Room is a great song. I think One Caress is a great song. And I think Higher Love is a great song. The rest of the album, I don't know. I remember not being impressed at the time, and I'm still not overly impressed with that album. It's not bad. I just think it's a very mediocre album for them. The singles are great. Walking in My Shoes has some great remixes, and it's just a really fantastic song. In Your Room's a good single. Kevorkian comes back again and does a remix of Higher Love, right? The Adrenaline mix, Higher Love, yeah. And what was the other single? Condemnation. Condemnation hurts my ears. I can't listen to that song. But there's some good remixes on there. Jack Dangers pops up and remixes Rush. So that's cool. And then the other single, what was it? I feel like I'm leaving one out. I Feel You. Oh, another song that I don't like. But remixes are good. Brian Eno steps up and delivers some really cool songs. And Renegade Soundwave pops up too and does a remix. And their mix is cool. The remixes are all pretty good. They're all better than the album version. But yeah, Songs of Faith and Devotion, it's okay. But that whole experience just wore Alan Wilder out, and so he left. And that was a big deal because Alan Wilder, I mean, in a lot of ways, he was the producer for Depeche Mode. Martin Gore would come up with the bones of a song, and then Flood and Alan Wilder would flesh it out. He was a big piece of that band, and you could hear it when he left. They were never the same. Now, I will say that leads to their most underrated album, I think, which is Ultra. I think Ultra is a great album. Very underrated, produced by Tim Simonon. It's not perfect, but I think it's the best non-Alan Wilder album they ever did. Songs like Home, the trio of songs, Love Thieves, Home, and then It's No Good. Amazing songs. I think Home and It's No Good are two of the greatest songs they ever did. And the rest of the album's good. There are a couple of okay songs, but I think the album as a whole really works. The Jazz Thieves is a good song. Barrel of a Gun is okay. I felt like that was Depeche Mode, like trying to be something they weren't, trying to carry on what they did with Songs of Faith and Devotion. Um, but Ultra's a good song, good album. If you remember not enjoying that album, you should revisit it. It's really, really good stuff. And then from there, they released another single, Only When I Lose Myself, which is pretty good. It's got a great Gus Gus mix on there, and Luke Slater pops up as a remixer, and pretty good single. The album that they put out after that was, what was it? Exciter, right? Exciter came after that. Mark Bell produced that. Pretty good album. I think Exciter is their last really good album. And I think a lot of that has to do with Mark Bell. And my ass is getting sore because I'm sitting here talking so much. I warned you. I gave you fair warning. Those of you who are still awake, good for you. Where was I? Yeah, Exciter came out. Mark Bell of LFO produced that. And I love LFO. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. And the mixture of that was cool. I think Exciter is a pretty good album. It's not perfect, but I think it stood the test of time pretty well. And it's a good album. I liked it then and I like it now, and it spawned some really good singles. Dream On was a good single. Depth Charge popped up on that single to remix. His mixes are cool. Or I think he used the name Octagon Man. J. Saul Kane. Yeah, he had a number of aliases. I highly recommend you check those out. But his main name he used was Depth Charge. But yeah, I think he went under Octagon Man for those mixes. Free Love was a single. I Feel Loved was a single. Really good remixes there. Excellent remixes. And then Goodnight Lovers was a single. And they just released the new vinyl box set of the Exciter singles. And I would recommend picking that up. Great remixes there. Some solid B sides. If you wanted to, if you want to go buy the records, I highly recommend doing that. And then after Exciter, see, this is where I'm going to get a little foggy because I kind of lost it after Exciter. I lost my interest in them. What came after Exciter? Was it Playing the Angel? Am I missing one in there somewhere? If I am, you can tell me, but I'm trying to think. I think Playing the Angel was their next album. I can't recall an album that they put out between that time. Anyway, Playing the Angel came out in what, 2005? I want to say 2005. That album never grabbed me. Didn't grab me then. Doesn't grab me now. Some really good songs on it, like Precious. That was a single. Sasha and Spooky stepped up to remix that single, and those mixes are pretty good. I can't remember all the singles from that. What was it? It was Precious. John the Revelator, was that on there? It was Suffer Well, right? Suffer Well. Lillian. Those were the singles, right? I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of that. I wasn't a big fan of that album. I thought it was just bland. Depeche Mode was sort of on autopilot. That's okay. They produced enough brilliance before then that they could do whatever they want. But yeah, I can't. Yeah, not my favorite album. Anyway, Playing the Angel came out, and then Sounds of the Universe came out, right? Yeah, that was their next album. I like Sounds of the Universe. I think that's their best album they've done since Exciter. I liked it. I remember at the time Martin Gore was hunting for synthesizers, and he had all these old vintage synths and he was using them for that album, and I really liked it. I still like it. I think Sounds of the Universe is an underrated album for them. It's very solid, very good stuff. The singles were Peace and Fragile Tension and Wrong. And there's probably one I'm missing, but I really enjoyed that album. There's some excellent Thomas Fellman remixes of I can't remember the song, but Thomas Fellman steps in to do some remixes of that songs of that album. Really good stuff. Sounds of the Universe, their last good album in my humble opinion. And then after that came the Delta Machine. Delta Machine was after that. Honestly, I've listened to it a few times. I thought it was shit. Couldn't even listen to it. A Delta Machine, it was too much. I just couldn't. I couldn't get through it. I I think I might have a single from that album just because it's Depeche Mode and I picked it up. But Delta Machine did nothing for me. Might be, in my opinion, their worst album. I really don't have much to say about that one. And then after Delta Machine came their most recent album, and oh my God, I don't know that I can even name their most recent album. Uh, it's got the Going Backwards track on it, the one about Trump. Um, you know what? I'm going to make you sit there and wait as I look this up. I don't even know the name of their last album. Oh my God. All right. Let me look. Let me look. Hang with me. Let's see if I'm forgetting any albums here. I know you woke up today and you're like, you know what I feel like doing? I feel like going and watching a dude search for things on the internet because that sounds fun. Spirit, Spirit. I remembered only because I looked it up. Yes, Spirit. I'm gonna look up the Going Backwards. That was a cool song, but yeah, I this album did nothing for me. I tried it. The one thing I did like about it was that Gore finally got political again. Like, like one of the, yeah, Where's the Revolution, The Worst Crime, Scum. You know, Gore was properly motivated. He started writing some interesting, he had some interesting topics instead of just singing about hippy dippy goofy love. He had some more shit to say about some political stuff. So I liked that. I liked it better than Delta Machine, but like I mentioned before, I don't know that once Alan Wilder left, that band just changed, and you know that leads me into the present day. Fletcher died a few weeks ago, which is sad, obviously. But let's be honest, no disrespect to anyone. Fletcher was a great guy. He was a good DJ. But let's be honest, Fletch is the one person in that band who had nothing to do with the music. He never wrote a note, lyrics, or song. He didn't do anything musically for that band. In fact, wasn't he the manager? Fletch was the manager for the band. He wasn't anything more or less than that. He stood on stage and pushed keyboards once in a while, but he had nothing to do with the creativity of that band. So in terms of Depeche Mode splitting up, I don't see that happening. I really don't see that happening. I think Gore and Gone probably have some more left in them. It would be super cool if they could work out their differences with Alan Wilder and put out another album. That would be cool because I think Alan Wilder is a huge piece to that band. Huge. Uh, Violator straight up would not sound the way it sounds without Wilder. Songs of Faith and Devotion, the same thing. Music for the Masses, the same thing. Black Celebration, the same thing. Their best albums are very much Alan Wilder albums. He had his hands all over those records, production wise. The guy's talented. Those of you who have Recoil records know what I'm talking about. Alan Wilder is a very gifted producer and songwriter. He's a talent all to himself. So man, it would be cool to see him reunite with Martin and Dave and see what they can do. It'd be very cool. Let's hope that happens. But anyway, what can I say to wrap this up? I just, Depeche Mode's one of those bands that's always been with me. It's hard to remember a time in my life that they weren't a big influence for me. And Depeche Mode always kind of represent, they'll always represent something I love about music, and that is experimenting and collaboration. There are all kinds of different people that had their hands over all their singles and remixes and albums. It wasn't just the band themselves. Um, People came together to, bring forth this music that was completely original, wholly original. And that's why Depeche Mode is as big as they are today. Have they put out anything original in 20 years? No, they really haven't. But they don't need to. They've already said all they've had to say. They've already proven their point. They've already shaken up the world with their music, and they're still around doing stuff. But yeah, they're not really pushing any envelopes anymore, and they don't really care to. I don't think they want to keep making music, obviously, but yeah, I don't think they've made a really good album in a long time. That's okay. Um, it's a little frustrating to listen to their records now and know that Martin Gore is responsible for albums like Violator and Music for the Masses. To hear him pump out albums like Delta Machine, I don't know, it's a little disappointing. You feel like he's capable of doing more than that. But maybe the fire's left him. His solo albums are pretty good. You should check out his solo albums. They're just experimental electronic albums, no singing, and they're good. I think what he's doing with his solo albums is way better than what he's doing with Depeche Mode. I think Depeche Mode's just run out of gas. I think it's time for them to pack it in. Even before Fletch died, it might be time for them to just pack it in a little bit. Dave Gahan has put out some solo albums, and they're okay. In my opinion, Depeche Mode is they are what they are because of Martin Gore. I think as long as Martin Gore is around making stuff, I think that's a good thing. I don't know that Gore and Gahan have much to say together anymore. You can almost hear it in the music. A little uninspired, a little tired. Um, I think it says a lot when Gore's music is a lot more interesting and cutting edge when he's on his own than when he's writing for Depeche Mode. It just seems like the fire's gone. But that doesn't matter because, the old stuff will always be there, always reminding us of what makes them great and why we love them in the first place. I mean, I'd rather go listen to Violator for the 1000th time than listen to most new electronic music. It's still better than most stuff that comes out today. And how often can you say that about a record? It doesn't have to happen very often. So to me, that's what makes Depeche Mode special. They will always be that band for me. The band that shook up remixing, the band that took experimental techno music and married it with pop music. Kraftwerk did that, obviously. Kraftwerk are the godfathers of that. I think Depeche Mode was the first big band to take what Kraftwerk gave us and extend upon that. New Order did it too. I'll give that to New Order. New Order did it too, but I think Depeche Mode did it in a different way. And New Order was more steeped in that punk ethic, where Depeche Mode was more steeped in the disco ethic. That's the difference to me. And it doesn't matter if you like punk or disco more. It doesn't matter if you like New Order or Depeche Mode more. I don't know that I like New Order or Depeche Mode more than the other. They're just different. But I think Depeche Mode, in terms of pure electronic stuff, they carried that Kraftwerk torch more than any other band. And that means a lot to me. Someone who loves electronic music like I do and loves techno music and house music, that means a lot and always will. So there's my Depeche Mode video. It didn't even take me an hour to do that. Aren't you proud of me, man? I could have ranted for 25 minutes to start this off, and you guys would watch your screens and be like, "God, this asshole's mad. God, this guy's got a lot of stupid shit to say. Look how cynical he is. Look how mean he is." I didn't put you through any of that. It was all just love. Loving vibes for Depeche Mode tonight. That's all you get. Peace and love. Go listen to Depeche Mode's Peace. And you know, use that to carry on from all this crap that I've just said. So yeah, it's been a very big Depeche Mode night, obviously. Um, yeah, I love this band. I have a deep history with them. I've seen them live. I've loved them for over 30 years. They mean a lot to me. And I don't need records to show that or talk about it, even though you guys are probably wishing I was holding up records. In fact, I might have, let me see what I have here. I know I have a couple of Depeche Mode records hiding over here. Here's one. I'll show a record. I pulled some of these out because I've been ripping records to digital lately. This is the, what is this? This is the Everything Counts US edition. This is the single they put out to promote the 101 album. And this had remixes of Everything Counts that were different than the ones that came out in 1983. This came out in 1988. The remixing happened, I think it was Mark Saunders and Tim Simonon, right? Tim Simonon and Mark Saunders, yes. And then Alan Moulder did the other mix. And they put out another single around this time too. They re-released Strangelove as well. And that had Mark Saunders' mix of Strangelove. I think they call it it's called a hijack mix. And then Justin Strauss stepped in and he remixed Nothing. The zip hop mix. There's that. I just showed that earlier today. Let's see what I've got hidden over here. Oh, I've got more hidden over here. Here's a compilation. This is called People Are People. This was a US only release. And it basically, well, here. Boy, sorry about the glare there, but People Are People. Now This Is Fun, Love in Itself, Work Hard, Told You So, Get the Balance Right, Leave in Silence, Pipeline, and the 12-inch version of Everything Counts. This was basically like a release that came out in the United States to promote everything they had done up to this point. And they put B-sides and 12-inch versions on here. So kind of a cool collection of songs. It's on Sire. Anyway, that's all I'm going to show tonight. I've got some more stuff over here, but all right, I'll show one more. Jesus, man. Here we go. See, this is the one I was talking about with the unbelievably cool Something to Do mix. Metal mix. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah. Shake the Disease. Yeah. This is a special record in my heart. Every mix on here is cool too, man. Well, the Master and Servant live version, I don't know, that's all right. But the remixes are all good. Seek this record out for the Something to Do. Or go to Apple Music. All these tracks are on there. No need to even pick up the record. Don't even worry about it. Just go to Apple Music. Okay. That's it for me, man. It's been almost an hour. 2 videos from me in one day. It's more than any of us want to watch. It's more than any of us want to handle. I'm going to keep rambling if I don't shut up. Maybe I should just go ahead and stop the video before I